I just want to give you a quick overview how to access everything in science class. We have a number of students who are already missing school due to various attendance issues, and I want to make sure that you can keep up, or at home if you want to see how your child is accessing things in class every day. This video is for you. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we can get to Clever. And for students, it's simply the home page that opens when they open Chrome. If not, they can hit the home button and the URL, and to Clever they go. Once they're in Clever, I really suggest the easiest way to do this is just go to Google Classroom in Clever. I've favorited Google Classroom, which means if I scroll down and find Google Classroom down here lower under Classroom Management, and I hover over it and make the heart turn red in the background, it then is at the top and I can get to it rather quickly anytime I want. So I'm going to open Google Classroom because that's where we start every day. Kids come in, Clever, to Google Classroom. I have a number of classes, but students will have their science class. And so in they go to their science class. And you'll notice the classroom banner says click on the Classwork tab. I do not put things in my stream. The stream can be a sloppy, messy place and you can easily get lost. So up here at the top, we go to Classwork, and here we have everything organized by topic. In class, the Hall Pass link is always at the top so students can access that. But right underneath it will always be the most current topic we are addressing in class. And in this case, it's our launch called Geology on Mars. For every unit, we have some resources. A Quizlet set is the vocab or terms that we use if kids want to take a look at those. There is a glossary built into Amplify as well, but some kids like to play the vocab games. There's no vocab quizzes, nothing like that, but it's words they should be familiar with and we use every day in class. The quiz is where we put the unit assessment so kids can see it ahead of time. They can practice it and play with it as much as they want. So when they get to the assessment, they feel very comfortable and prepared. Geology on Mars Unit Jamboard. A Jamboard, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up. It's not an assignment, but what I want you to know is every day in class when we work together, this is a very collaborative curriculum. And so students work alone or in pairs and then bigger groups, and then we always share out as a class when we talk about topics. And so the Jamboard is where I will record the ideas that students have. And that way a student is always caught up, whether they're in class and things move at a faster pace than they're ready to go, or they want to review, or they want to check their answers, or you're at home and you're wondering, well, what did you talk about in class? What did everybody come up with? Well, on these screens, we've done that. So in this case, in lesson 1.1 under step 3, students should end up taking notes from these cards, and I'll show you those in a minute. And this is what throughout the day was mentioned. And so we have numerous screens that cover that. And then we also have either lesson or chapter or unit questions that we're always focusing on. And as we gather information in the unit, we will collect that here as well. So you might think of it as our note space. Only students don't take the notes individually. I mean, they're welcome to, but they record their answers in the Amplify space, but they have access to this 24/7, as do you. These are this is a public document. So when we reach a lesson in class, for example, we've already completed lesson 1.1. So I go to lesson 1.1. There will be a due date. Notice the due date is not a late work due date. It shows you and the student what days in class we will be working on it, and then they should turn it in as soon after as they can. For each lesson, and this is more for those of you that might be at home and don't get to hear me give a quick overview of the lesson and give some reminders. But if you're at home, I've made just a quick lesson overview about what it's really about, the main idea, and most importantly, some reminders. Because there's things that the teacher has to tell a student during the lesson so they know what to do. So in this case, there's a video that's presented to students that's not on their student screen between activity 3 and 4. Well, you wouldn't know that if you weren't in class, and this will remind you of that there is a video to watch between those steps and where to find it. And also, there are Planet cards we use in this lesson, and we have PDFs of them in the Drive folder, and I'll show you how to access that soon. So, it's not a bad idea, especially if you're at home, to look over that. And then the other link that's there is an instructional page. This takes students directly to the lesson. So you'll notice there's a button here, Open Amplify Lesson. Even though we use Amplify, students don't have to navigate Amplify to get here. We have it set up where this link will take them right to the lesson we're working on, so they don't get lost. They don't have to remember what unit, what chapter, what lesson. Just click on it. It takes them right there. It also has a Drive folder link. And in that Drive folder, when they're in class, it's not necessarily that useful to them. But when you're at home or need to get to something later, what's in that folder are the materials we use in class. For example, I mentioned earlier that we were using some cards. They're physical paper or cardboard thick cards that they use to access information. Well, they can get there here as well, and you'll notice it's titled Cards in capital letters. There's also the video we watch is titled Video. It's there in the Drive folder, so students can get to it anytime they want. So if I open the cards, you can see here's what the cards look like. They were cut up and shared in class in groups, and they can see those anytime they want. Now, as for the lesson goes step by step, and not every lesson has something for students to type in. For in this case, they're just introduced to a vocabulary term. And in the next activity, another vocabulary term. And then the next screen, they're introduced to some information. And yes, while this is happening, we are interacting. The teacher is leading students through and giving them background of what's going on. And then when they get to step 3, on the second screen is the first time they're asked to actually input answers. And the instructions are there, but this is what it looks like where you provide answers. A student provides answers that teachers would then assess or look at. And then they're going to use the button in the bottom right corner and hand that in and then move on to the next step. Students will not see the T step. This is where we watch the video. I mentioned earlier that there will be nothing to note to them to do that. And that's why that lesson overview page is there if they're not in class. And then eventually we work all the way through the end of the lesson. And students can get confused. The step 5 says homework. I tell them, don't read the title of what it's about. Just go through the steps. Some schools don't have class periods long enough to complete a lesson. We do. Our class periods are a few minutes longer than the recommended length of a lesson. So we do the homework in class. Science does not send out homework. They're not assigned. The only time I would say to do that is obviously if you're absent and you don't have enough time to keep up, or you find that you just can't keep up in class with the pace of everyone else or the group, and you might need to spend a few minutes catching up, but it is not assigned as homework. So that's kind of a quick overview of a lesson. There is at the very left, before the lesson even begins, what's called the lesson brief or lesson overview, and the digital resources can be found there. But again, they are also what's found in the Drive folder. So there's 2 ways to get to the same thing. And so hopefully that helps navigate if you're at home. If you have any questions or are still confused, let me know.